Let me read what we're talking about today. Facing the illusion. Today I want to bring up something that many times, in fact, all the time, is incredibly difficult for the separated self to do. That is to be able to face the injustices and inhumanity in the world. This is a big topic, and it will be a big discussion. Got it? All right, so that's what we're doing today. We are talking about facing the illusion. So, just a little background. We have to set the stage. So we have to set the stage so that the conversation makes sense, right? So what do we mean when we say the illusion? What do we mean when we say, I will use these two terms interchangeably, the illusion and the dream state, the illusion and the dream state, right? So if you don't know, I am a 42-year teacher and student of A Course in Miracles, which is a non-duality teaching. And so A Course in Miracles would say that anything that is not of love, unconditional love, is an illusion on some level. And that the world that you see is an illusion. It is not really the truth. It's not the truth. It's a dream state. Why is it a dream state? It is a dream state because how you are perceiving everything is being filtered through your egoic mind. It's being filtered through your opinions. It's being filtered through your culture. It's being filtered through your likes, your dislikes, all of that. You're not really seeing what's happening. Okay? That's huge. That's huge. Now, that does not mean that something is actually happening in the illusion. That sounds contradictory, but it's true. So, for instance, if you break your arm in the illusion, you break your arm. And you can say, I don't see a broken arm. I see healing. I see light. That's fine. You can do whatever you want to. But the fact is that you really did break your arm, and that is really happening. But it's in the illusion, right? So how you see the broken arm is huge, right? It's not what it is, it's how you are perceiving it and what you're doing with it, correct? So everyone is doing something different with everything. We use it here all the time. Let's take this pencil. Okay, so everyone sees this pencil differently. Every single one of you is looking at this pencil differently because you have a different story about pencils, right? You have a history with pencils. You know what pencils are. But everyone has a different viewpoint of the pencil, right? That's the illusion. There is an actual pencil in the illusion. Your story about the pencil is very different. Tiffany has a story about pencil. Max has a story about pencil. Maria has a story about pencil. That's why it's an illusion. It's a dream. It's a dream. You don't really see what's there. You see what you think is there, right? What you see. So that's the illusion. That's the illusion. Capiche? If you have any questions as we go along or any comments, please put it immediately into the chat because we're going to be having a conversation. Okay? So that's the dream state. So this is one thing. Now, take that and spread it macro. That's micro. This is macro, right? So spread it out to the world. Now, as hopefully all of you know, the world right now seems to be full of upheaval, full of injustice, full of war, full of it's heavy. There's a lot happening in the illusion. In the illusion, there is a shitload happening, right? There are genocides happening in Sudan, and in Africa, and in Gaza, other places that we don't even know. So what do we do with all of this stuff? This is the question. Now, this is a big question, and it's very heavy. It's very heavy. And it does need to be addressed, because many times remember, I've been doing this a very long time. Many times what happens is that what you don't want to see, if you didn't want to see the pencil, you won't see the pencil. You put it over there, like off the screen. It'll be over there. But it's still happening. There's still a pencil over here. You just don't see it right now. but there's still a pencil over here, right? So you can choose to go, I can choose to be like, there's the pencil, or I could choose to do this. This is about perception. This is how you're seeing everything. So you can be like, there is no pencil. There are no pencils. Oh, there's a pencil, right? So all the intensity that's happening in the illusion right now, and it is in the illusion, because it's not real. All of that, many times in, how do I want to say this? In many spiritual traditions, sorry, I have to blow my nose. Especially, I would say, especially New Age spiritual traditions are like, well, then just keep looking over here. Don't look over there. Don't see the pencil. This could be negative belief, right? So there's a negative belief, and you're taught, don't look at the negative belief, look over here. Look at the positive belief, don't look at the negative belief, look over here. Now, that is what's called a spiritual bypass. Many of you have heard the term spiritual bypass, because even if you are looking over here, there is still a pencil right here. It didn't magically disappear because you're not giving attention to it. It's just like the broken arm. Your broken arm is not magically going to disappear if you don't acknowledge that you have a broken arm, right? So take that macro and you look at the wars, you look at look at the environment, you look at the wars, you look at just all the big stuff, right? And it can be absolutely overwhelming, right? The separated self has a mechanism to make sure that it stays safe. And one of the things is denial. It denies this is happening. Most of the time it's not conscious, but it denies it's happening. So what does it do? If this was water, you'd be pushing it away down under the water, right? You'd be like, I'm not la 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 la. I'm going on with my life. I'm going on with my life. I'm going on with my. First of all, you have to know that this is going on, but you just go no 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 no, and you're pushing it down. What happens to a balloon if you keep pushing it down in the water? What eventually will happen? Please put in the comments. What will eventually happen to the balloon you're pushing down in the water? What will happen? Please put in the comments. It'll pop up. It'll pop up. It'll come up and it'll hit you in the face. That's right. That's right. Because what you resist persists. It bobs to the surface. It will persist. It's not going away. It's just not in your purview anymore. You're just not looking at it. But the analogy here is perfect, because what's happening is you're taking a lot of energy to keep it going, pushing down. So denial is not just a river in Egypt, as they say. So what you resist pushes back. What you resist keeps going like this. It keeps coming back up, right? So you're like, no, 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 no. Yes, 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 yes. No, 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 no. Yes, 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 yes. What you resist persists, right? And of course, in miracles, it would say that you create what you defend against. It's like pushing a rock up a hill or pushing a balloon down in the water. It's going to keep pushing back, pushing back. Now, let's talk about the horrors of the world, because this is what happens. Not always. This is like spiritual bypass. I'm going to push it down and look over there and be like, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. Now, two things can be happening at the same time. So, as the horrors and the injustices are happening in the world, so are the flowers blooming. So are babies, new babies being born. Now, this is heavy. I'm going to just say it right now. New babies are being born, and others are being, I can't say that word, others are being eliminated, and new babies are being born. What is the separated self to do with that? Many of you may be contemplating this right now. from this character's point of view, I hope that you're contemplating this right now, because what you do not face is bound to be repeated. If you look at what's going on, if you look what's going on, I'm a history major, I love history. What do they say? History always what? Repeats itself. It repeats itself. It repeats itself. Now, here's where this is all muddy stuff. This is muddy stuff. I'm not here to give you like, I'm going to teach you how to deal with the illusion. No, we're going to look at what it does and what it doesn't do, right? What the illusion does, what your role in it is, and how and what happens, right? So obviously, if you keep pushing it away, it will what? Return. History repeats itself. You can see it so clearly right now. If you do any kind of investigation, if you listen to anything that's going on right now, you can clearly see that this is just like, oh, we're back here again. We're back here again, right? Now, it is not your responsibility, it's not your separated self's responsibility to save the world. But how do you walk through the world, know that's happening, and at the same time, not, I'm going to say this very clearly, have a mental break, not go into depression, not go into anxiety, not go into literally a mental break. You can have the separated self, even though it's a separated self, can have two things happening at the same time. This kind of has to do with focus, but not exactly, not exactly. The awareness of what's going on, because as the Course in Miracles would say, you have to know the problem before it can be solved. So to pretend there's no problem, there's never going to be a solution. Never going to be a solution if you pretend there's no problem. And remember, from truth principle, there's only one of us here. So however one of us deals with this affects with everyone, right? So as it's heartbreaking, that's right, it's heartbreaking. It is overwhelming. It is depressing. It is anxiety. It is whatever happens to be. And some people will feel it more than others, and it doesn't matter. So one thing I want to say to you very clearly today is do not pretend it's not happening, because that's going to make it 10 times worse. 10 times worse. There is no time. There is no time. But in time, if you don't look at it, if a culture doesn't look at it, if a people don't look at it, then it will repeat itself. Now, this is fascinating. What are the two words that come up after huge tragedies like we had in the 1930s? Never, what? Never again, never forget. When the avatars never forget. Avatar's greatest current struggles. That's right. This is so important. So important. So never forget. So there's this mantra like never forget, 6 million people, never forget, all of that stuff. Now, I want to point out something that's happening right now. Some of you know this, and some of you might not know this. When we're talking about the particular situation that I'm referring to, one country is standing up for justice. And that country has dealt with something very similar to this because they see it going on. They've been there. They know it. South Africa is standing up and saying, hey, this is a war crime, and we are taking it to the international courts to present it as a real war crime because they've known it. And if you have not read their argument for this, I strongly encourage you to read that, because, or go listen to it, because it's going to help you to not deny what's going on. It will. What I'm talking about right now is going to, I'm telling you, especially if you're on a spiritual path, your separated self is going to want to ignore it. It's going to want to not look. That's never going to work. You have to look at it. First of all, just as Christopher Robin said to Winnie the Pooh, you're smarter than you think, you're braver than you know. So looking at what you don't want to look at is one of the most important things. You have to see the problem before it can be solved. I'm not going to tell you or say this is how it's going to all work out, or this is, but as far as being a conduit of something in the illusion, because the illusion's happening, I'll say that again, the illusion is happening. You can't pretend it's not happening. Well, you can, and many people do. But if you want to be a conduit for unconditional love, you need to see what's going on. You need to see what's happening. This is why people like Mother Teresa went to where the people were suffering. Why people go to where the people are suffering. They don't go la, 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 la. In other words, deal with it. Look at it. This is what I tell my students all the time. So if there's something that they're scared of, I'm like, turn your head right at it and you go right into it. Go right into it. Because it is the fear of it that keeps it going. The fear of the thing will keep it going or keep it manifesting. So this is a conundrum of our day. We're living right now in a situation that many thousands of people, millions of people in the past have gone through, and even in right now, it's all happening. You can see it in front of your face, right? Gwen says that it's frustrating. It's never again people doing it. That's exactly right. So, the never again people doing it, your separated self will want to be like, well, then not them, never them again. This is doing the same exact thing. You're pushing against the thing. Remember, I always think of this, that, what's his name? Wayne Dyer had a book. I loved Wayne Dyer. A lot of it, what he talked about. That he had a book called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And that is the truth. But when I say spiritual, I'm talking also about psychological. Spiritual can be a spiritual bypass. So be very careful. Be very careful. It's very important that you see what's happening. Because even if you don't immerse yourself in it, you still know what's going on. It's back here. What's going on? Right? The Course in Miracles would say this: everything is love, or it's a call for love. So the question is, do you hear the call for love, and will you answer? Or what will you do? Let's just stop at, will you hear the call for love? Everything in the illusion, everything in the illusion, everything in the illusion, everything in the illusion, everything in illusion is either a manifestation of unconditional love, or it's a call for unconditional love. Now, unconditional love is very important. Not love to all of the victims. Unconditional love is love for the perpetrators and the victims. Love your enemy. See, it comes down to this. Now, this is where it becomes incredibly challenging. Incredibly challenging. So you're asked to unconditionally love the perpetrator and the victim. Because that is, and it's been said through all great religions, to love thy enemy as thyself in some form, right? The Torah speaks of it. The Bible speaks of it. All the great religions speak of this thing. So when things like this happen that are so on a monumental scale, we are really asked to love unconditionally. Can you walk through the world loving unconditionally and still, this is where it's hard, right, Maria? And still know we can't live in a world like this. A world like this will implode itself, right? Even though it's illusion, a world like this will implode upon itself eventually, right? We've seen it happen throughout history. The difference now is that we have much more technology, and we have this thing called so it's very different. Okay, so this is what we're just opening up a discussion about. I've got a few more minutes to hang out with you. So what's it bringing up with you? Your questions, your comments, your anything. We're just here. This also can be really, really, really a great environment for you just to get shit off your chest. Listen, this character kind of used to teach that, but I never said don't watch the news. I always said, watch the news, because the news, whatever, or the negative things in the world are your biggest teachers. The hardest thing is the biggest teacher. The easiest thing is like, whatever. You're asked to shed more of the egoic self. Not be like, I'm going to look over here. Rainbows, butterflies, unicorns. If it's not happening for me, then it's not happening. And I'm not, listen, that might sound very, very judgmental. And on some level it is, but it's just the facts, ma'am, the facts. Right? Your secrets will kill you. That's just setting everything up as it's a big secret. We know it's happening, but we're not looking at it. I know I have a broken arm, but I'm not looking at it. It's ridiculous. Thank you for saying that, Sue. What else is coming up for anybody? Hi, Christine. You say some more about love your enemy. Well, first of all, thank you for asking that, Christine. It's unconditional love, which is very different than conditional love. Because if we are operating from conditional love, then everything is transactional and they need to be a certain way before you can love them, right? So just think about historical figures like Jesus. It's like Jesus saying like this, oh, I can't really love you because you've been mean to your father. I can't really love you because you're not nice, right? You'd never hear that. Now, Jesus would get angry at injustices, like, you know, the famous scene when he turns the tables over using the church as the taxpayers. He's like, no, that's not right. He's not hating those people. He's hating what's being done, right? Or saying this is not right. So it's unconditional love, not like love. Because love, listen, I want to go to my tattoo artist, although I got this, but anyway, and write unconditional love. Because love, from the separated self point of view, is always transactional. So it has to be untransactional. It has to be unconditional love. You're not loving what they're doing. You're loving the truth of them. And there is no them. You're just loving anyway. It's very difficult. For some people, it's really difficult. Other people, it's a little more easy. Does that help at all, Christine? Maria says, I find it really hard to come out of the depression that the news brings. I understand that. Now, so let me come back to Sue's point about not watching the news. Now, we have to know ourselves well enough. Every separated self has a capacity, different capacities, right? Different capacities. So some people's capacity for the news is up here, and some people's capacity is here. But pretending that it's not there is not going to help anything, right? Allowing yourself to look enough to know what's happening is important. But this character also, I'll just give you a quick little history. I have been studying this region, because I'm a history major, for the last 30 years. What's happening now is not a big surprise to me, although it is horrendous, right? So it's like, this was, if you did any research, I have very good Palestinian friends. I have great Jewish friends, whatever. I've been studying that for a very long time. So by the time this happened, I was like, well, of course, right? The reaction to it is out of proportion, right? So I haven't been ignoring it. What was my point? My point is that you don't need to do anything, but it's going to help you mentally. And that's where everything starts. And emotionally, if you find the strength to face whatever it is. Most people don't want to look because they're afraid of the fear. They're afraid of the fear. Did you hear me? They're afraid of the fear. Listen to what Christopher Robin said to Winnie the Pooh. You're smarter than you think and you're braver than you know. I know that to be true. Even if you can face a little bit of it. It's kind of like when you have a marriage that's falling apart. Marriages fall apart, but there's always a recognition of looking at what's happening. And sometimes when people look at what's happening, the marriage can start to rebuild again. But some people are like, okay, I'm done. It doesn't matter. I'm not making a value judgment, but it will fall apart. It will, whatever it happens to be, right? Loving yourself, so believe in love so you don't get depressed. Why? I want to say this very quickly. What's wrong with depression? What's wrong with anxiety? What's wrong with difficulty? People are putting that in a category that you shouldn't be depressed. Of course, it's better not to be depressed. But if there's depression, if there's anxiety, if there's sadness, and you push away from it, you're doing the exact same thing. I'm not depressed. I'm going to love myself enough so I'm not depressed. You're doing the same thing. You understand? And when we say loving ourselves, who are we loving? Are you loving the separated character that's full of flaws, which is fine? Or are you unconditionally loving everything and everyone? Depression is not bad. Anxiety is not bad. War is not bad. You're like, what? It's how you see it. This all can be the biggest. Listen, I work with something called A Course in Miracles. A miracle is the pure potentiality of anything to happen. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Right? I mean, to jump on you there, Mary, but you understand what I'm saying, everybody? Carol says, when there is no compassion for anyone, that's an ego fest on steroids. That's right. That's right. It is. It's all necessary. Without the storm, there wouldn't be the rainbow. To be super cheesy. People are running around trying to ignore and avoid so much bad things that I wonder why we're creating so many bad things. Take a deep breath, everybody. Have the courage to be depressed. You don't stay there. You don't stay there. But have the courage to feel your fear. Feel your fear and do it anyway. Be depressed and do it anyway. Be anxious and do it anyway. You will find that you are much more than your little character that doesn't like to be depressed. Who cares? Only your little character that doesn't like to be depressed is not wanting to be depressed, and then the depression is the whole thing that you're resisting and pushing away your whole time. Be fucking depressed, be angry, be whatever. All of those are part of the whole thing called life. Because if you push one thing away, you're pushing it all away. And you're giving the depression and the fear all of its power so that it is controlling your life. And what's the biggest fear? The biggest fear is death. We've talked about it here before. I have videos on it. The concept of memento mori is facing death. The idea, the ancient Greeks used to talk about this, is to have death at your side at all time. Be friends with death. If you ever seen the movie The Seventh Seal, it's kind of that's what it's all about. It's very intense and depressing, but it's about being friends with death. Because when you're friends with death, you're alive. Why do you think that people who get cancer or a life-threatening illness, some of those people crumble and they go down, and other people, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm talking psychologically and alignment-wise. Other people face it, and guess what? They become alive for the first time. The death is the door to their aliveness, and they see everything that they've been missing because they've been pushing death away. But when death is at your door, you can't push it away anymore. Well, you can, but some people, that's when they really start living. Take a deep breath. Tiffany says, I need this so much. Incy says, just read the quote, which is perfect. We must always hold truth as best as we can determine it to be important, more vital to our self-interest than our comfort. I love Scott Peck, and that is really true. That is really true. Because we're all like lulling ourselves into comfort all the time. Lulling ourselves into comfort all the time. Stop that. Stop it. There's nothing wrong with comfort, but and I'll tell you this, the more that you face your shit, the more comfort you will just have. You will not have a big monster in the closet that you're trying to get rid of all the time. That is no way to live a life. And I'm telling you, a lot of new agey woo-hooey stuff is all about that. Keep that closet closed, keep it closed, keep it closed. Don't be depressed, don't be anxious, don't be that. Rainbow, sunshine, unicorns and fairy tales and blah, 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 blah. And then they have a mental break and they don't know why they're still depressed and they need to go to the loony bin. Duh. Duh.